Like what you hear? Smash that like button, subscribe now.
Canada is out of the World Cup at the round of 16, and it sucks. The World Cup dream is over. My blood pressure can finally return to normal, well, until England plays in about an hour and a half, and then it will go skyrocketing back up pretty quick. This is our last World Cup show. We'll be going through the match reaction. We'll be overreacting, pretending we're emotionally stable, and we'll try and convince ourselves 4 years isn't that long. We are TFC Unplugged. I'm Noel. That is Sean, and welcome back for our last World Cup show. Apparently, we're missing a great end to the Brazil game, so no spoilers, but it seems to be. Is it done? It is done. Okay,
It's done.
So
by the time everyone sees this, everyone already know the score. So yes.
okay, so Brill is joining Canada in the on the way home plane. So there we go. It's
yeah.
Sean. It's easy to go into the depressing stuff of the Canada result because 3-0, it was comprehensive if you look at it. Jesse Marsh said we were the better team.
Let's not rehash his words.
No, but I think for the first 45 minutes, I think Canada was the better team in that first half.
Fair enough.
And I think we both, you text me during the game and said we need to just get a goal to to get something out of this possession and the chances we had. And I think the fact that we didn't get a goal, I think ultimately kind of comes back to bite you a little bit, right? When you had so much great momentum going forward. In that first 45 minutes, I think the intensity level was there. The energy was there. I thought they played great in that was the best 45 minutes of this World Cup for me.
When you look at how they were playing as a team, moving the ball, aggression, knowing when to put on the press, knowing when to give them time to they're just going to pass it. They controlled the midfield. They were shutting down anything that Morocco had. You're right, 100%. They were the better team in the first 45. However, the same thing that has haunted this team outside of the Qatar game is why we crashed out in the end. If we cannot score goals and it's not a matter of it's necessarily always putting the blame solely on our attackers, but because there's other opportunities that we had built up that, doesn't matter who's taking an opportunity. You have to punish them. And that is what makes, the top teams, because literally the first shot in the second shot in the second half, it basically off of a corner kick, which you heard me say from before this World Cup started, when you and I were at that bar up in Newark, and I said set piece defending is going to be crucial for us. We conceded in the Bosnia game. I can't remember if we conceded in the Switzerland game that by a set piece. However, we can. It's been an issue with this team for a while now, right? It's nothing new. So at the end of the day, when you don't finish the opportunities that you had, because we had chances, right? Yeah, Bono made a couple good saves, that one on Tanny. However, Tanny's got to finish it. You still got to finish it, right? That's what makes you not even a world-class striker, but a clinical finisher. You finish those opportunities. You're not going to get many of them, so you've got to be clinical, right? And that's the difference, right? Because it's not as if you can say we were outplayed. We were just out hustled in the end, right? That first goal that they scored out of the second half kind of deflated us, but we didn't necessarily just give in. We still fought for a while, but it was literally the last 15 minutes where we were gassed, we had nothing left, and they caught us exposed because we were trying to get the equalizer. They caught us on a break. They had the numbers, and it was a perfect finish for them. And honestly, by the third goal, I was zoned out. It was on, TV was on, but I wasn't even there anymore, because it's like I'm now thinking I kind of expected us to lose, but I just didn't expect us to kind of I feel the 3-0 scoreline doesn't necessarily show how the team played. So that's the negative side of it, right? I can also bring in the fact that we're not going to get calls until we start to prove ourselves more on the world stage. this will have earned a little bit more credit, but you saw a few times yesterday where we were expecting to get calls where probably should have, because if we
No, it
we
just
did do
proved to
the
me
exact
Michael
same
Oliver
thing.
is a complete idiot. Like we
Well,
already
there's
know
a
it from the
well
Premier League. Michael Oliver is a
that
horrible, horrible referee, and it just that's not even up for debate anymore. Like I think no matter if you watch the Premier League, you kind of already know that. And I guess my example of how stupid he is, and he is stupid because at the end of the day he's got a terrible decision record. But the Hakimi Richie Larea incident, the fact that Richie gets a yellow card from what is a clear and obvious wind up attempt, and the referee, does what he does. But yeah, at the end of the day, Morocco looks a little bit like what we used to in the CONCACAF. There's a lot of theatrics, a lot of late
they played it
tackles,
up.
a lot of the stuff that you don't like to see. And the reason why Morocco will get beat by somebody else is because that stuff won't work and teams will punish them when they have the chances. We didn't punish them on the chances, right? And I think that's the difference in there. I think for me, just, look, at the end of the day, the round of 16 was where we said we think that's where this team could go.
Yeah.
And if you look at that, I think that's a fair result. And I don't think it's a bad thing that we made it to the round of 16. But the reality is you need to have more players available. You need to have better options. You need to grow the program, and you have to do a whole lot of work to get going forward. And at the end of the day, I was thinking about this because I've spent most of my day looking at a shower faucet because I've been plumbing away, and so it gives you time to think. And I was thinking about this today because just to put it in context, right? I've grown up watching obviously England for a very long time. England's always had great players. They just never really had the ability to put it all together. You've got great players, great individuals, you've got players that don't like each other, you've got players that don't want to play with each other, you've had managers that have been, like a pair of sunglasses on the bloke that's got one ear that completely useless, from Gareth Southgate to Capello. They're just tactically not the right people or the right fit for England at the time. And I think when you look at that, and I look at it in terms of England's problem has always been they've never really had the players to really solidify them as a team. The difference is with Canada is we're growing into that, where we're trying to get those players that are really good, that those players that are coming along and developing and turning into world-class players. And when I first came here, it was 20 plus years ago, and the most famous Canadians that I knew that played soccer were Craig Forrest, because I've seen him at Ipswich and West Ham and Chelsea. Thomas Radzinski, because he played for Fulham, and I thought he was actually Polish, and then he played for Everton as well. But the only reason I knew he was Canadian was because they put a Canadian flag one time next to his name, and I was like, he's Canadian? I thought he was Polish, which was a shocker. And then obviously Jimmy Brennan, because he played for Forest and obviously went to TFC. And so now, if you ask that around the world, people can name Canadian players. And I think that's in 20 years, it's come a long way. And you're not going to get to I get some people get overexcited and say, oh, we're going to make the semifinals and stuff like that. You're not. You have to develop. You have to build a program. You have to have those things. It takes time. It does suck. And I hate saying it takes time, but that's the reality of what it is. You said it the other day, you inspire the next generation. Well, that next generation and the next generation behind it will come from this World Cup. We saw it with the US in '94, what it did for them 20 something years later. They've got, players that they're starting to develop and go into bigger clubs. And that is where we're at. We're just behind the curve on that sense. But it's been a great result for Canada at the end of the day.
Yeah, and so I was thinking a few things, right? About the future and how can Canada become a better, I won't even say a soccer nation, because at the end of the day, reality is depending on where you live in Canada will determine how much of a soccer community you are. Right? Yes, it's played all over, but hockey will still dominate in certain parts of Canada and rural parts of Canada versus other sports. So it'll be a sport that's embraced, but again, to call us a soccer nation, that's a different conversation. However, we also have to remember something before we start to look at, why aren't we following, this country or that country. Look at the size of Canada, coast to coast. What it would take for us to truly, develop, be a soccer country in the sense of we've got all these programs, blossoming across the country. It's going to take a lot of money. It's going to take a unified, not just Canada Soccer, but the provincial bodies below them will have to find a pathway to work together with the same kind of plan. Because reality is to discover the next best athletes, you can't expect Canada Soccer to find all these little, or even the clubs, it's the CPL teams or the MLS teams to find these young kids when we are so big and so vast. So what we will need to do is have a better system. And I think, things like League One is the part of the program, but you also have to look at the youth levels. How can they not focus on the pay to play, but make sure you're bringing in the best athletes that can harness the skill in the game, right? Because again, if you put an emphasis on money, you're always going to push away some of the best potential players out there. And you and I, we support TFC. There's going to be in some places you don't have that. If you have access to even a CPL team, go out there and support it. That's going to be part
I think I do agree with you. I think that this World Cup will drive investment into the country, into the soccer programs. I think people will invest in it. I think people got a little bit excited about it. I think that's what happens. It's just a natural thing that happens after the World Cup's ended. People are a little bit more involved in it, right?
One last point I have to make is, and in order for our national team to truly be more competitive, we will need our players to be playing competitively, not necessarily in the Premier League or say the top leagues, or even if they are, you don't need to focus on, say, the big clubs within those leagues. Prime example, how Kone was blossoming now that he was in Sassuolo in Italy. Sometimes taking a step back from the limelight of a club will allow you to blossom and develop your game a lot better, right? So I think we also have to remember, MLS has a purpose for a lot of these players, but we still have to look at trying to get for now, as many players playing in good leagues in Europe, Belgium league. You know what I mean? Like there's enough places
I
that they
agree.
can harness
But I also
their skill.
think that the problem is that we don't, as a country, play enough good teams. Canada, because it costs money. The friendlies and the I don't want to call them makeup games, but like the Nations League, we play the same crappy teams. We played the Rock'em Sock'em Robot League in the CONCACAF, which I don't think you have to spend too long with me to realize that I absolutely detest CONCACAF and the antics. I just find it's irritating. And if you want to grow and you want to to be a more competitive team, you also have to play against better teams consistently. And that's where we've really got Mexico, we've really got the US, we play like more than I could care to go and see. But at the end of the day, I think that's generally what that I think we need. We need more international friendlies. We need games where against competitive teams, against teams that actually push Canada. And that means you might lose some. But at the end of the day, I do think it's a case of we don't have that because Canada Soccer's not got any money to pay for a Portugal to come here. I said it the other day, if Portugal and Canada played a friendly and you got a crowd that's like they did this week, you'd make a lot of money. You'd make a lot of money in terms of merch. You'd make a lot of money in terms of everything else, right?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree at all, right? Something wrong with my volume again?
Yeah, you just went really statically loud.
Oh yeah, you know what? My microphone kind of.
There you go.
Let's see.
There you go. You're all good.
Okay, okay, good. You know what? There's a lot of there's a lot of opportunity, right? I think with our results this year, more countries will be would be willing to not just play Canada, but even come. We can say at minimum Toronto, because at the end of the day, we've made it, I think Jesse Marsh has made it clear. Top nations only want to play on grass, right? So until we have outside of Toronto, say Montreal, places that can host quality number of people in the stands, right? That's going to be an issue. Or fans have to accept, maybe they do have to go to Europe and play them on the road, right? Because it's just logistically easier getting the players there, and again, facility wise, right? And this is something
that's a great point. That's a great point. Just on that, just before we get off, if you look at it, like when it comes to these friendlies, like having, go and play. We don't play friendlies in Europe. We don't play teams like the Brazilians do, where Brazil's playing Italy in. Do you know what I mean? Like we don't do that.
Yeah.
But we need to do that, and because of how we've done in this World Cup, and because of how how people have perceived this nation and how people have perceived this Canadian team, I think they've earned that right to be involved in more of those games. And I think that is where Canada Soccer does have to step up and say, you know what, at the end of the day, we have done a great World Cup. We've had a great team, but now we need to get these players, the expression a little bit more battle hardened, because we're not really.
Yeah.
We're used to CONCACAF. If you want to go and play in a crappy pitch in Ecuador or wherever else that we've played in, Rock'em Sock'em Robot style, we're great at that. We know how to handle that, but we can't go to a Highbury, and the Emirates or somewhere like that and play England on a proper, good old, passing pitch, because that's what we don't get enough of, right?
For how good we've improved, you're right. In order for us to be better on the international stage, it's not just a matter of playing better friendlies. It's also choosing crucial, regions of the world where we tend to not see them enough and maybe get enough experience playing these teams. So whether it be more teams playing games against African teams, and maybe it's easier to get them to go to Europe as well and play, two African teams playing somewhere in England. You may not get a massive turnout in the fan standpoint, but it just having that vibe of, not playing the pressure, maybe not playing at home, having more of a neutral kind of fan base, but still experiencing a team that you're not going to get to play. You don't play in the Nations League. You don't play in the Gold Cup, because I think we've reached a point where our region, we know what to expect. I think we kind of know how to play South American teams, at least based off of the past few years, where I think we would do a lot better. Like if we had to play a Colombia, yes, we know they're a better team, but I think we could be it would be a lot different.
I think our styles match a little bit more with those teams. Do you know what I mean? Right? If you look at, you're on about Colombia as a great example, but I think our style matches up against theirs quite well. The problem is if you look at games like the Switzerland game, it's the savvy know-how, right? Of just this is European football, and this is a little bit more of the bigger nations. And I think at the end of the day, they've done fantastic to get to the round of 16. And I saw a lot of negative today, and I just ignored it. The Alphonso Davies stuff I'm not going into. At the end of the day, like the one thing I would say on injuries before we get into it, I just want to say one thing on injuries. And this is not just a Canada dig. This is a dig at England too, and a dig at a few other countries. When players are just not fit, are just not anywhere near healthy, don't take them. Go and give somebody else. I think that's the problem we've got. And it's not a can. I'm not taking this as Alfonso, but I'm taking this as a dig at like a lot of the teams where they're all sweating on players to be fit. And then you've got players that are sat at home that you probably could have done something for your country that aren't doing something for your country, right? And I think that's where my little frustration is with, not necessarily the Fonzie, but like just in general, because at the end of the day, there's players out there that would die to be in a World Cup and that are fully fit, raring to go, and they might offer something. And everybody gets, you always get those breakout stars at a World Cup. We didn't get to see anybody because somebody else took their place because they were injured or they were not fully fit. And I get certain degrees, certain players, you're always going to try and have one. But, when you see teams with 4 or 5 players injured, not fully fit, and at this World Cup, and you're just like, well, there's guys that could have made a name for themselves, right? And that's what kind of bugs me with this one.
I agree with that standpoint for the most part. And I'll speak specifically on Canada because I know everyone was saying or questioning why did they pick him if they knew he wasn't basically going to be used, right? However, and here's a fair question that I have for all those people. All right, who are you replacing him with? And that person, where do they fall on the depth chart? Are they just a depth player? Are they a starter? Because reality is everyone who would have been kind of below him, they're just depth players. So anyone who's now coming on, for example, a Prizzo, we all love Prizzo. Prizzo doesn't play the same position as Alfonso and doesn't bring to the table what Alfonso brings. So even if he does happen to get because he's then either going to play you're not going to use him in the midfield. You're probably going to keep him more as a defensive safety. And where we were lacking wasn't from a defense or say the midfield, was goal scoring. So at the end of the day, or again, having someone because we saw what Alfonso did in his 20 minutes he played. You saw how the game changed and how it opened up a lot more. What just having him on the pitch does. We don't have anybody else that you could call on that would do that. So
no, but that's what I mean. You could take one like that, right? Like an Alfonso in this case.
Yeah.
is what I'm saying. You can take one, but when you're taking multiple and you're trying to balance multiple, and the biggest question we've said about this team all this World Cup is who is actually fully fit. We've had a horrible run of injury luck, right? And I think that's a little bit saddening because it is, has hampered what we could have done. We could have probably, we could have been better with, with Kone, with Alfonso playing yesterday. And I think
with
those
Flores, healthy Flores.
Yeah, Flores.
Here's what people need to really take a step back if they're real crushed on the 3-0 defeat. Just imagine we had a healthy Alfonso, we had a healthy Kone, and we had a 100% healthy Bombito, and we had a healthy Flores.
I have one more point to that. And like the other two co-hosts of this bloody World Cup, we played at home. Because I am still irritated, and it hasn't bothered me until today, really. And when I was doing my shower repair, I was thinking about this. Mexico gets to play at home, US gets to play at home, but we had to go and play 2 on the road. And I didn't like the fact that they were outnumbered yesterday. If that was in Vancouver yesterday, or Toronto, or wherever, I think we had a bit more of a shout and a bit more advantage, because I think at the end of the day, hosts should play at host. And I'm sure we could have bribed Infantino, because it sounds like he's up for a few bucks if you want a decision your way. But at the end of the day, it kind of bugged me as a host that we're on the road when or the other two hosts played at home. And I get they won their groups, but I think at the end of the day, there should be something in that. I think it's a travesty, but I think at the end of the day, they've done fantastic in this World Cup. I couldn't be more prouder. And at the end of the day, what else were we expecting? A miracle run. It's not Hollywood, right? It's soccer. It's reality. It's you're only as good as your players on the pitch. And I think you can't ask for more than they gave yesterday. You could see it in their face. They were done. They were beat, but they gave everything they had, and that's all we can ask for them. And at the end of the day, the other part of if that game was played in Canada, one of their players wouldn't be on the pitch because he wouldn't be in the country.
There's that too, and I'll agree with everything you said. We have to be happy, right?
For the most part, why would we be sad? We're normally sad about stuff because we support TFC, but at the end of the day, what can't you be unhappy about? You got to see the cities absolutely partying and supporting Canada. That's all you need.
My expectation, and I think the core of the fan base, was round of 32. They exceeded it. Done. Yeah. Done. That's fair. Done. Nothing more to say. Hats off to them. We're all proud of each and every one of you. Like I said on the last show, I think the future's bright for Canada soccer, period. Men, women. Ladies, you're up next year. And in fact, I think I'm going to say this, there's pressure on the women's team to finally step up at a World Cup, because they usually go in as one of the top 10 teams in in a Women's World Cup and tend to falter. They may get out of the group, but they don't go as far as they've ever expected them to. In fact, they've had some stinkers of tournaments. So I think it's time for them to now be like, all right, if our men can rally the country, it's time. We've seen what they've done in the Olympics. Time to step up in the World Cup. Because they have the ability on any given day to be at minimum a semifinalist.
Yeah. I'll take your trusted opinion on that one.
Anyways, I don't want to. You kind of. You know what? One question for you: Will there be a lawsuit if Belgium loses? Will Belgium's FA go after FIFA? Because FIFA just literally bent the rules because Donald Trump made a phone call to Infantino. Because this has never happened. I don't believe this has ever happened in the world of football.
No, and I think it came up on my phone and I thought it was a hoax because I kind of looked it up and I just took open my phone and then I just saw the backlash online and for those of you who haven't. If you don't know, that Balogun obviously was sent off against Bosnia for that weird tackle from behind, which I tweeted this. I didn't feel it was a red card because I don't think he's got the intent. I just feel like he took a really bad angle on the player. I think most people would say red was fairly harsh. I think at the end of the day, we know that tackle was a little bit of a weird one. And like compare it to the Messi tackle that Messi got nothing from. It's definitely a yellow. So regardless of what happens, he gets a red card. Now, automatically that red card is a 1-game suspension. Donald Trump and Marco Rubio from the Trump administration called FIFA and, put some pressure on them, and they said FIFA overturned the decision based on their disciplinary panel feeling it was.
They didn't overturn it. They did not overturn it.
They just
suspended
it, which means they can defer the punishment like they did with Ronaldo for Ronaldo would have missed 2 games for his red card, right?
See, and this is like, go on. Sorry.
So there seems to be a rule for Messi. There seems to be a rule for Ronaldo. There seems to be a rule for the USA. That's how it looks, right?
Because it's
money.
Note,
let's just call it what it is, Sean. It's money.
But isn't one of FIFA's mandate is that once politics gets involved in football, so
that's gone.
I'm just saying.
Gone. We handed out a peace prize to a guy that a month later started a war. So you can take that and turn it sideways and shine it straight up Stone Cold Steve Austin's ass, because at the end of the day, that's just bullshit. They give a bloody political prize to a leader to calm his ego down. That's not football. That's not what it is. And that's the problem. I always thought Sepp Blatter was the worst thing in football because he was corrupt. He was making money on deals. We knew half the CONCACAF was on the payroll. We knew he could buy votes for various countries for whatever reason. Infantino has brought politics into this.
Oh, yeah. And he's destroyed football.
He's destroying it by the soul. He's selling it out for commercial revenue. I would like to know how much he's on the take for, because at the end of the day, this guy is corrupt as hell. The fact is, you've got politicians, he's got Putin lobbying for him. Like, at the end of the day, football's not a political game, and I don't understand why anyone in politics should be involved in this. It's not. And the fact is, he wants to get elected again next year. There needs to be protests. There needs to be riots. There needs to be things to stop him, because he is destroying the soul of football. And at the end of the day, whatever this is, like, Balogun shouldn't have been sent off, in my opinion. But he should, because he's been given a red card. He should be sent off. And now, let's say today, Harry Kane gets sent off for England. The English FA can now go to FIFA and say, well, hang about, here's an example.
They're going to have to. Any game,
and they're going to have to.
Any
so
game
broke the rules of the game.
If it happens, any game moving forward in this World Cup, where a questionable red card is given, or even a player receives 2 yellows and one of the yellows is questionable, that FA has a right to turn around and make that phone call. Hey.
Yeah, because you know what it happens is if you do get a lawsuit, you are going to have this situation. They're going to go to court and they go, explain this decision.
Yeah.
You won't be able to explain the decision.
No.
They
Based
will
on
have
your
to,
rules, you will not. Yeah.
Yeah,
And to me, it would be.
They'll lose.
Especially
Irritates me.
if Balogun goes and scores. That's going to be a bigger slap in the face, right? And his goal is the reason Belgium is knocked out. I hope. Again, I personally now want Belgium to win even more.
I think
right?
half the sporting world wants Belgium to win, and that's not a shot at the American team. I'm not taking a shot at them, but I am taking a shot at the fact that look, and it's not. It's I want to point this out because I heard this on the thingy. The US actual team did not appeal or did not lodge a complaint or protest with FIFA. FIFA, based on a phone call from the world's favorite dictator, is the reason why this got overturned. And I see people celebrating it. I'm like, you guys are idiots. This is corruption. Your country is corrupt as it is with
blatant
this guy.
Corruption.
And now it's there. It's right there.
This isn't even like some behind the scenes. Yeah. This isn't even some kind of behind the scenes thing. This is we're seeing it happen in 4K, in 8K. You can't even deny it, and it's.
He tweeted it.
Like I said, yeah. Well, that's why for me.
Oh, sorry. Truth Socialed it. What the frick that is? Just
whatever.
It is. But it's not. And this isn't on Trump. This is on Infantino. Because this is what happens when you suck up to dictators and you give them a peace prize. This is what happens. You made your bed because you are corrupt. Because they are ruining the game. And at the end of the day, you have to question the integrity. Because, we've always, I hate to be conspiracy theories, but you hate to think, but you look at some of these decisions, and I just mentioned Messi not getting sent off when it's clearly a red card the other day. You had Ronaldo's had his 2 games. Yeah, the Croatia, the VAR decision.
The goal. We can keep going. Even the Paraguay game, how they were attacking, literally fouling and not getting caught. Like this has been one of the most.
But it drives
you can
revenue.
Basically say
that's why.
They want. You could almost guarantee who's going to be in what.
What they want is Messi versus Ronaldo in the final. That's what they want.
But I don't believe it can.
Or the semifinal.
Oh yeah, because here's the thing: is I think Portugal's on the same side as France.
It is. It's a semifinal.
So I think the way they look at it is we'll either take Ronaldo, but if for some reason we can't make sure it happens, we'll take a France. I don't know, maybe Spain, but Spain I think for some reason is going to get screwed earlier.
You're getting it to the point. This is the beauty of it. You're going to get you can sell Messi, you can sell Ronaldo, you can sell Lamine Yamal of Spain, and you can sell an Mbappe.
Yep.
So
that's what we know.
Get those. That's what they want. It's FIFA's pretty clear that it's about revenue and about making money. It's not about the integrity of the game, because at the end of the day, if we were talking about the integrity of the game, that decision today puts that out of doubt.
Well, if we talk about integrity of the game, Messi would have gotten a red card from his.
And it's a red card. It's
we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here right now, right? So, anyways, we could sit here and whine and complain forever. Again, you have heard us long enough. You've watched enough of our episodes.
No, but I think it's a fair, valid point. I think at the end of the day, I think what we're frustrated at is it's the integrity, and what I think it's more is the American team didn't do anything about it. It was political, and I think that is where we get fed up. Look, football is about escaping from the life and from grind of life, right? And politics is such a big thing in everyone's life, and you get bored of it, and you want an hour away from it, and that's what this sport's about. We want an hour away from the crap and the grind and the corruption and the everybody seems to be winning except the people. And then it's now crept into our sport, and I think that is where I think, if you can't tell, that we're passionate about it. And I think that is why, when you see something like that and then you see the political figures getting involved in the sport, you just it kind of just puts a real damper on it. And I think that's an unfortunate event in this time. And I feel bad for Balogun because it's not his fault and it's not the US team's fault, but at the end of the day, it falls down to the person that runs the organization, which at this point is a nightmare and a joke.
Yeah. So that's enough said about that. Again, our last shout out to everyone in Canada, the 2 co-host cities. Shout out to Vancouver. You guys definitely showed up. All the events were great. The stadium looked packed every game. BC Place looked much better with grass than I think you and I have criticized that turf pitch for decades, but it looked beautiful with the grass field in there. And of course, the way I think we ended off BMO, they sent it off with a banger with Portugal and Croatia. I don't think you could have asked for a better way to end.
Absolute classic game. And you know what? Shout out to those fans. We did a bunch of the shorts this week on them, but honestly, Roberto Martinez, I have to shout him out for his comments because we've had to take a lot of crap from a lot of people about Toronto Stadium and about BMO Field and all that stuff. And
about Toronto in general.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go into those because those guys don't deserve our breath. But I just want to say, what, freaking credit, man, that everyone that turned up, and really just kind of made those games and those atmospheres absolutely electric. It's just it's really nice to see because we've known it for a while. BMO, we make fun of it. I make fun of the fact that we have no running hot water and the fact the warmest place in the stadium is actually the men's washroom. But we forget how on top of the pitch we are. We forget how close we are. We forget how loud it is when it's full. And the extra seats, this is even been better. And I think at the end of the day, when Roberto Martinez, a guy that's obviously coached around the world, comes out and says it's like an old school Premier League stadium. And it's a shame that Toronto did not get more games. And it's a shame that they are leaving. And they stayed extra, I think, to do a training session. So
they stayed an extra day.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I think multiple reasons. I think the love they've received, they've realized, they've received love wherever they've gone. But I think they also, to shout out the Portuguese.
I don't think they received the love that they got here. Those videos are pretty epic, and if you haven't seen them, go on our YouTube page and check them out. They're in the short section. But there's some, and full credit to him. I'll end with this. My brother-in-law is Portuguese. His nephew was at the game the other day. He's a cop in Toronto, and he's in behind the scenes when the Portuguese team were thinking. And I said to Andy, I can't wait to ask him about this when I see him at Thanksgiving, because he looked like he was trying to hold his crap together and be professional. Which good for Christopher. That's freaking awesome.
There you go. All right, so we'll leave it at that. Shout out again, everybody. It's been fun. However, stay tuned. Tomorrow evening, Monday evening, Noel and I will be dropping a regular TFC Unplugged, as the TFC has been making some moves over the past week and a bit. So
finally.
We'll kind of, finally. And there's a few moves that we're very happy about. So stay tuned for that, because we will be dropping another episode.
Yeah, we're back to regular programming, because we do have a lot to talk about in the Toronto FC. Finally, Sean mentioned it. There's players in and out. There's also a round of 16 watch show with Keith Pelly tomorrow, and a mid-season supporters summit also happening tomorrow. So we will bring you all the information and updates from there. So don't forget to like, subscribe, do all those things so you can don't miss another episode. And you know what? Just the last thing from us on, the World Cup. We did this because we thought it'd be just fun to just kind of cover Canada while TFC was on a hiatus for 100 odd days or whatever it was. And this has turned into a lot of fun for us. So big thank you for everyone that's watched, everyone that supported us, and we look forward
All
to
the
seeing
guests.
you. Yes, we had a lot of fun people on as well. So we've got more to come.
Yeah, I missed a couple of them, but hopefully I get to. We'll have them both back on. Definitely, there's one I want to get back on soon, but you and I we'll chat about that.
Yeah, we're gonna. I just realized I whacked my leg before I started this podcast, and my leg is bleeding, and so I am going to go and deal with that. Thanks,
All
guys.
right.
Thanks for watching. Take care.
Like what you hear? Smash that like button, subscribe now.